Greetings, everybody, and welcome to episode 16 of the Shining Developer Series. My name is Eric Nance, and as always, I am so happy that you've joined us for another exciting episode. So, in recent episodes, you've seen through various demonstrations and discussions the power of the HTMLwidgets ecosystem and how that can tie in so nicely with your Shiny applications. Well, our next guest has definitely taken that mindset and done some really interesting work in tying Shiny with a couple of the widgets that she's been able to create. So let's hear from firsthand from our guest for episode 16, Jiena McLellan.
I don't.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. We are back with another Shiny Developer Series episode, and I am so thrilled to be joined by a very talented data scientist and Shiny developer, Jiena McLellan. Jiena, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah,
My pleasure.
we're thrilled to have you on. So if you don't mind, maybe you could give us a little bit of your story and how you got started with R and how you got started with Shiny.
Yeah. Firstly, I'm Jiena McLellan. I got a master's degree in statistics from Kansas State University. So I think I learned R and Shiny back to 5 years ago when I was in graduate school, and R was the only one programming language that statistics students have to learn. And back to then, I was a student worker in the international office and help them to generate a report, help them to generate statistical model, things like that. So it's pretty much like every week we have a lot of data to refresh and generate. So basically we have a lot of manual work. So I was thinking about how to be lazy, how to save my time, and then how to automate this process a little bit, so I have some time to enjoy my coffee.
Oh yeah, that's important. Coffee time's important, right?
Yeah, I usually send coffee to the code.
Very cool.
So back to then, like R is my only programming language that I know how to program. And then I Googled it, and then I say, okay, so it would be good that if I can use R to build the interface, or maybe the interactive app, to send it to my boss, or maybe send it to the public, so they can log into the app and then see all the visualize of the data, and then they can generate a report by themselves. So I don't have to, go ahead and refresh the data and then refresh the code and then do it by myself. So that's the beginning for me to learn how to build a Shining app, because Shining, of course, Shining has the ability to build interface without knowing a lot of HTML. And then also Shining R is my first language. So that's why that's my first exposure to R and Shining. And then I began to be a big fan of R and Shining.
Very cool. I wish R had been my first language. It definitely was not. um,
English.
yeah, I guess yeah, maybe poorly, but yeah, I do have English as the first, and then from the computing side, it was Java, and Java. Nothing against that language, but probably not the best one to start with, especially if you're
Oh,
going to go into statistics later on. But history is history, right? So certainly, I have a lot of cool things I want to ask you about, especially some of the contributions you've been making to the community. One of the first things that I saw you contribute to the Shining community was a great package called the DT editor. So we're going to see that in action a little bit. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what was your motivation for creating this? What was motivating behind that?
yeah. Let me share my screen real quick. So basically, the DT editor is pretty much the first Shining app that I built that can interact to the back end. So the reason why I built the DT editor was like the first time I got a job, and then at the end of every year, we have to write the summary of what we did for this year and what's the project we did, and what's the process, do we finish or not, things like that. So I spend a lot of time to memorize, to kind of like record myself, like what I did for the whole year. And I don't know if I catch everything, but it seems like I was thinking about, oh, it would be a good idea at that point if I have an app, like even the spreadsheet or maybe any kind of document to um, document the process of the work for this year. For example, like monthly process for each project, things like that. So it was triggered me to think about, how to build a app to have the interface that you can have like a small data set, and you can kind of like show the small data set, but then you also have the ability to edit or maybe delete these rows by in the real time, so you don't have to go to the Excel spreadsheet and then do it manually. So that's the beginning. That's the motivation that I'm look at a lot of HTML widget, and of course the DT will be the first one pop up because DT is just like so popular and so awesome.
Absolutely.
Yep. So that's why at the beginning I was building like a very simple app, like using the DT to show the local CSV file, and then every week I have to go to the local CSV file to change something. So that's like very old fashioned. I'm thinking about I'm thinking about, okay, so at that point, like most of the Shining app that is in the showcase or maybe in the gallery, most of them are about like how to show, how to demonstrate fancy data visualization from the big database. So it's very few Shining app that showing that, okay, so the user have ability to interact with the back end, with the database. And also I figured out that most of the app that demo is like super big data and then like linking to a SQL database, things like that. But I don't want to go to that scale because I just want to have like a small, easy self-serve tool that I can just like access to my local data, and it could be CSV or something, and then I can just like easily edit this local small data set for me to have like a record for the daily life. So that's why I figured out that DT editor, we can do a few HTML trick in this DT package to make a DT editor. So that's also like one of the time point that I realized the value of the small data set, because the whole world is talking about, oh, how important of the big data, things like that for their company, for their enterprise or things like that. I'm thinking about, oh, maybe there are also some value about a small data set. If we didn't realize at that moment, probably if we collect maybe a year later, things like that, we can see the value of the small data set. For example, if you are in a CrossFit, or maybe you are doing exercise, you wanted to document your process. Like maybe today you do the exercise for like 10 minutes. Tomorrow you will do probably 12 minutes. And then by the end of the year, you will probably do it for 1 hour or 2 hours. You can see the progress of the change, the change for every single day, or maybe like weekly process, things like that. And also thinking about if you're on diet, and then you can document how many, like what kind of stuff you eat and how many protein they are, things like that. So that's kind of like, it sounds not important data, but when you collect this kind of data weekly or maybe monthly, you will see the value of yourself.
Well, that's really interesting that you were kind of thinking of that personal kind of small scale. Now, I do have a story for you that may be surprising. So this, I really see this as being a quite valuable tool. And I had a colleague at work that was working on an app that needed to be able to edit some data behind the scenes and serve that back to the server of interest. In that case, it was a database. And I shared that, there are ways, if you're using DT already, thanks to my friend Jiena's work here, that you might be able to leverage some of that. And he told me, his name's James, if you're listening, I'm doing this for you, buddy. He told me and once they put in DT editor in action, he was so excited because it saved his team and his department, I kid you not, over $300,000 from
Wow.
proprietary solutions. So you never know when you throw these things out to the community what kind of benefit they'll have, even if it's something that you probably didn't envision that somebody could use it at that scale. But certainly it's really powerful. So I definitely commend you for sharing that with the world.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing this story. I love to hear that.
Yeah, I think we definitely need to give kudos to open source contributors like yourself that are doing very valuable things, even if it is to quote scratch your own itch. You can definitely help a lot of people along that process. So certainly DT editor is really powerful, and you've been busy with some other tools as well. I'd love for you to have a chance to share some of the other frameworks you've been working on, if you'd like to share some of those.
Yeah, so the DT editor, and I have a demo app here. So
Oh,
if you
wonderful.
go
Yeah.
to the my GitHub repo, pretty much every single GitHub repo will have a demo app like this.
Mm-hmm.
So basically you add what time. I just add some random, maybe Jiena request, note. So now you can see it's here, and then you can save it, and then you can edit something, and then you can save as the CS3 if you want. And then it's also have like the global search in here, things like that. Also have the sorting stuff here. So back to one of the DT use case will be one of my friend who got my best friend from graduate school, and she got a job. After she graduated from the PhD, she got a job in DC,
Mm-hmm.
and then she need to find a house, but the time is pretty rush. It was pretty rush. We have to help her to find a house in probably 2 weeks in
Wow.
DC. So that's why I was quickly building like Shiny editor for her to have a house tour. So basically I can have like, what's the type of the house, bedroom, bathroom, what's the rent, here's the link, and the note will be like how many like what's the distance for your workplace, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So she liked it very much, and that is also the use case for DT editor. And the DT editor is not a package, so many people ask me like how to use the DT editor easily. So I that's why I built another the DT editor Shiny modules. So you don't have to code anything. You can basically just go ahead and replace the note.rds, and then it's good to go. So let me share the link here.
Great.
Okay, so DT editor is here, and then there is a DT editor module. I put the link here. It's a GitHub link. So now you can basically go ahead and git clone, or maybe just download it in the zip file, and then you open it here. It will be a nice Shining app already here. But then thinking about, okay, so I wanted to build my own DT editor. Yeah,
Perfect.
for example, for your app podcast, Shining, awesome Shining develop Siri podcast, and then you wanted to build a DT editor, thinking about like you wanted to document the episode 1 or 2, and what's the guest speaker, and what's the category, things like what's the topic of this episode. It could be htmlwidget, it could be the R package, or whatever you wanted to add. Maybe you wanted to also add some comment, or maybe some notes. For this DT editor, you can create like a mock data table using this one, and then when you run it, okay, so this is your initial data structure looks like, and then you can simply just use this one to replace the note.rds. And then let's run the app.
Oh, you even got that nice reminder to remember to have them save the updates. I know that can sometimes be taken for granted. Cool.
So now you can see we have the DT editor for your podcast. So what's the episode, what's the guest speaker, what's the category, what's the note, things like that. And then you can share with Curtis. And then if he wanted to put some comments or he wanted to have some suggestions, he can put it here.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So
really
if you do some change, for example, you don't want to have the note, you think this is not necessary, you can simply just add it in the data.table. And then this is just only 3 columns. And then if you replace this node.rds and then you run it again, you can see that I didn't do anything. I didn't code anything. I just simply overwrite the RDS file.
Yep. So it's dynamic enough just to read the contents of that template file, and you don't have to futz with the rest of the module code. That's really cool.
Yeah. So the add modules, you can see it's like three dimensions here that's reflecting like what's the column name that you put. So that's pretty handy.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah. So there is only 2 details that be careful. One is we have to use the data.table instead of data frame. So some of the users, they can kind of confused about they use the data frame and it's not working because we have to use the data table. Another thing is currently we are not supporting the date. So for example, if you add a date here, then please use the character or factor. So like that. Because the date format, it seems like it's not working very well in the HTML monitor. So just simply do a quick, just don't save it as date, just like do it like as the regular
like
character.
A string then. Okay, sure.
Like a string, and then you will get a nice one. Yep. So this is how to use the DT monitor, DT editor module.
Well,
like that.
I believe that's exactly what my colleague did. He took the module and just incorporated it into the much larger app so that it wasn't have to be a whole lot of re-engineering on his part, and he could tie those updates to a database. So yeah, it has lots of possibilities.
Great. Yeah, so that's all about like the DT monitor, and then people can use it to have like build up their like a small workflow to document their daily small data or daily data, things like that, and they can share like this online interface with their family, their team. So if they brainstorm some project, they can document into the DT editor.
Very nice. And yeah, so this is what I first heard about, and I know you've been working on some other cool shiny extensions that have helped your daily work. Maybe you could show us a little bit about what you have in that portfolio.
Absolutely. So another one that I think is pretty useful, I built up another package called noteMD. So this package is to document, so the user have ability to write their comments about, so for example, like this plot, and then they can, when they download the PDF, it will document their comments in the markdown syntax.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, the reason the reason why I built up this one is because again, I feel like Shining could support a lot more for like more interactive activities, such as the user have ability to like add or monitor the backend data, and this is also the same kind of concept. And the user have ability to document their comments, and then they can print it out into the PDF, because usually in the most of the case that this, the statistical report is super long and a lot of like data and then a lot of plot, things like that.
Yes.
But then the user just passively accept like what's the result from the report. They don't have ability to put their own specific comments, such as like this season, what they think about that. They think it's too low or too high, things like that. For that specific plot, they can immediately document this note. And then when they download the report, this note will be in their self-serve report.
Very cool. It saves a lot of manual effort to kind of try to export that somehow, and then maybe in a different software, like embed a comment in there. You can do it all in one place. That's really nice.
Yeah, so I also have the quick demo app. Hopefully I still have some active time. So, okay, so this plot is nothing to do with the package. This is just like when you use the Shiny template, this is kind of a default setting. I think most of people, you will realize that. This one will be the comment box linked to the noteMD. So for example, I say, okay, note 1, this season is good or not good, things like that. I can use the, like, the markdown syntax.
Absolutely. Yep. I write Markdown for everything now, no matter in apps or outside of apps.
Yep. Okay, so note 2. Very good, things like that.
So you
now
got the
if
formatting
you have,
preserved in that preview down there. That's really cool.
Yep, and then now you can download it in the PDF.
And I assume this is using like the R Markdown package behind the scenes, inject all that in. Very cool.
Markdown and Pandocs.
Yes.
So now you can see it's nicely formatted in this way, so that this will provide the user ability to generate their kind of like self-serve report instead of a generic report.
Yeah, and the nice thing is you can embed this part across many parts of your app if you have multiple plots, right? And each of them may get their own comments. That's very cool.
Exactly. You can, if you think this is like a little bit busy, you can use the Shining JS like JavaScript to hide this process, and then use the to-go button, say, okay, you wanted to add a comment or not. If you say yes, and then you can just have the pop-up or maybe just like a hidden slice things to show this comment box. So
absolutely. I am a big customer of Shiny JS, and we'll be having the author Dina Telly on in a future episode coming up soon. So I use that every single app.
Cool. Yeah, so this is like another way to build kind of like more interactive Shining app instead of like user just like passively accept all the results, all the like interactive, like all the graph they can see in the app. So they have like more interaction with the data and with the app.
Yeah.
And then, yep.
Very nice. And you can see that this is, you're diving into some really interesting concepts here of making the user's experience much easier. And it does sound like you mentioned, JavaScript a little bit with Shiny JS. It seems like you've been also diving into some ways of learning and extending HTML widgets, which we've had some discussions on in previous episodes of the developer series. So maybe you could share a little bit about your journey with that.
Yeah. So another app that is worth to mention is called, is also in my GitHub repo. Let me share it here. It's called like Shining Through Flow. So this is the combination that have, let me log in first. I just like code the login by myself. So that's why this is acknowledgeable. Okay, so this app is the combination of the DT editor and the noteMD. So the concept of the DT editor, so I just showed it like before, like 5 minutes ago. So this is the DT editor. And then this one is this one is the plotty that shows the DT editor. For example, if I remove this line, Yes. And then if I click save, now you can see the plotty is like change real time.
Absolutely.
So we can have ability to build a plotty that shows the DT editor, and then we can also use we can use the noteMD to allow the users to put their comments and put it into the PDF or the Word document.
Very cool. So it's another example of where we see these different utilities, and the key is how do you blend them together in a cohesive way across a more, you might say, production friendly workflow. This is very nice.
Yep. Okay, so let's move to like more HTML widget. So as we demo, like we have the DT editor, we have the noteMD. I also, right now, like this year, I'm also a big fan of building like HTML widget. That's because I feels like Shiny is like Shiny, the front end Shiny is still relied on like a lot of HTML widget to build up like more interactive graph. So I feel like the HTML widget will be like the easiest way to build up some tool that the visualization that can allow the users to drill down the result by themselves. So that's why I'm kind of a big fan of like HTML widget right now.
Very cool.
I also watched like the whole episode, like John Cohen, like I think he did it like last month, like the
Yes.
episode. Yep.
Yep. That was a lot of light bulbs in my head of like, okay, I've really got to take the plunge and make one of these myself, or at least find something to wrap that's already out there in the community. So that's, yeah, it's a great concept now.
Thank you. Yeah. So the first one that I would like to show is the FAQ package. It's very easy to use. So basically, you just like create a data frame of like one column for question and one column for answer, and then you put this question into FAQ function, and then everything is good to go.
Wow. That's simple, huh? Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, not a lot of code. I built up all the tools for specifically for the Shining beginner if they don't have a lot of HTML knowledge or they don't have like R code knowledge. Don't worry about that. Just like use the package and then prepare the data and plot in, and then you can see the initial result. And that's the beginning of building some HTML widget and use the HTML widget. And then if you have like further question, for example, you want us to change the color and maybe you want us to change the font size, things like that. So that will be like more advanced stuff.
Absolutely. Now, was this a widget you found online? You just put an R wrapper on, or did you make this completely from scratch?
I made it completely from scratch.
Oh,
So
I'm
I
even more
write the
amazed. Wow.
I write the JavaScript and the CSS by myself, so I can show it real quick, like later.
Sure.
Okay, so now I can have a real demo here. Okay, so now you load a package, and you just create a data frame with one question column, one answer column. No need to do anything else. So if you spend more than 5 minutes about this one, then you can call me. You can plan on me. So your question, your answer, and that's it. And then you say, okay, so this is the data frame, and you plot it. And then this is a nice HTML widget here.
Very cool. And just like any widget, you could use this outside of Shiny just as much as within Shiny.
Yep. And then it's like foldable. If I can, so now I can zoom out a little bit to have a full view. Yeah, so now you can see the question is foldable, and there is an option to expand all the question here as like what this GIF shows here.
And there's obviously no limit to how many you can put on here. As long as it fits in that data frame, you're all set, right?
Yeah, you can put a million.
Well, this is something that I've been wanting to do in my apps for a while because they tend to be much more complex than like the simple, like old faithful geyser apps these days. And I need to share with the user some information on maybe some things they might not understand at first. And if they run into an issue like, oh, this plot doesn't show up, why not? Oh, okay, here's what you have to do. And who do I contact for help? Oh, yeah, such and such.
Yeah, so this is like super easy. And then also if you wanted to change, so this structure, for example, is very widely used in the FAQ. But if you wanted to say, okay, so I wanted to have a definition page that looks like that, I don't want to use frequently asked question. You can basically say, okay, so change the frequently asked question to anything else that you wanted to call, and then
Sure.
this will change here.
Yep. So you can present it however you like, and then it's ready for the user to view after that. Very cool.
Yep. So this one will be users cannot spend more than 5 minutes on making HTML widget, and there's no requirement for the skill background, and because there is absolutely no coding required. You simply just like make a data frame and then you're good to go.
You know, you remind me of when Iwei Sia, of course, the author of our Markdown and Knitter, had given a presentation at a conference I attended many years ago. He had said if you couldn't learn Markdown in like 10 minutes, he would give you $10. I feel like this is probably along those same lines. If you can make a data frame, you're good to go here.
Yep. Of course, there are some like more advanced stuff. For example, if you want to highlight some specific questions, such as like answer for question 1, you wanted to highlight the question 1,
Mm-hmm.
then you can go ahead here and you can use the HTML tag. B. So the B tag is for the bold style, like highlighting. And then you run it again.
Yep, I see. Question 1 is bolded. Very cool.
Yeah, so it's supporting all kind of HTML tag. If you wanted to change the color, if you wanted to highlight it, if you wanted to insert a picture, you can use more like advanced HTML stuff. But if you just wanted to have like basic stuff, you can finish everything in 2 minutes.
Very nice. Yeah. And you've also created something really cool for, has a lot of great applications for learning something new. Maybe you could share a bit about that widget.
Yeah. So another widget that that is worth to mention is the flashcard. So the flashcard, I haven't put it here, but here we go. So the flashcard is usually when we build up the Shiny app, and then we would like to have the value box. And the value box, I was thinking about, so there's one time I built up the value box, and then I put this year's information and previous year's information side by side. And then it's a little bit crowded because I wanted to have like a lot of value box. So then I'm thinking about like how to concentrate the idea, the information to be like one box but showing two sides of information, such as like the front end side is the current year, back end side is the previous year. So when people hover it, they can see, okay, so that's the current year, and then back end side is the previous year, and that's one idea. And then another use case for the flashcard is if you wanted to teach your kids like English or maybe Chinese, things like that, you can have like one side as the English, one side, back side as the Chinese, things like that. And then when your kids hover it, they can see, okay, so what's the Chinese word corresponding to the English word.
That's or in my case, an old timer like me that was trying to pick up Chinese much later in life. This would have been very useful when I first met my parents-in-law. They're from China, and I was trying to learn with basic flashcards. I could have made a Shiny app out of it if it had been around back then.
Yeah, it can be you can build some like tutorial app using the flashcard, and then flashcard can also be very useful. Saying if you wanted to hide some information that's very essential to show to the app. But also it's a little bit crowded if you put everything in the app. You want to hide the information in the backside. So for example, like you put the value, like very important value, in the front side, and you wanted to put the formula how we calculate this value in the backend side.
Oh, that's a really good tip. Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah, that's information that people would have to know, but you don't want to show it like as important as the value.
Yeah, I'm amazed. So I'll ask kind of similar thing I asked with the FAQ one. Was this something you coded from scratch, or did you find this in the community? How did you make this?
This one I also make by myself,
Wow.
like scratch. Yeah, I made a lot of like HTML by scratch because I don't know how to apply the external library yet.
You have the inverse problem of many of us, where it's like, if I can't find it online, I don't know how to make it from scratch. So you are definitely a pioneer in that.
Thank you. Yeah, and also like this HTML widget is very easy to use. Just basically you have like a front, you have a data frame. Like what's the information for the front side? What's the information for the back side? And then you're good to go.
Wow. Yeah. Again, one of those things where if you know how to fill out a vector and a data frame, you have what you need. So you've definitely given me some ideas to think about as I make these more complex dashboards that at the end of like a modeling pipeline, I have a series of maybe 6, 8, sometimes 12 metrics. Do they all have to be on the screen at the same time? No. I mean, there's definitely some that are more supplemental information. And if they're related to like a primary outcome of result, then we can just kind of say, hey, you want to see the rest? Click that little card and you'll see the rest. So yeah, very good idea.
Yeah, let me show you a demo how easy to use.
Sure.
I believe I already showed it. I already proved it's easy to use. But yeah, I have to show it. I'm not lying. So basically you have like DF1, it's like simple data frame. You have the title, like how do you want to put the title? You have the first line, you have the second line. You don't have to put the first line and the second line. You don't have to use 2 lines. If you put a very long second line, that's okay. So you just need 2 rows here. So now if you put your data frame, and then you can see a nice HTML widget like here. You can also change the color. You can also customize and change the color for the back end and the front end. And then you can change the color for the text, such as I wanted to change to yellow. And then it's yellow.
Very nice. And you can do for customize for each side too. That's really nice.
Yep. And I believe you can also change the front end color, such as blue or maybe green. Hopefully it's not too ugly. Yeah, okay.
Well, yeah. The color choices, that's another topic for another day. But luckily there's some good palette packages out there. But the point is that you do get to customize all these features. And again, you did the hard work for us. We just leverage off of it.
Yeah, hopefully I can save you a lot of time to code this stuff. Yeah, to answer another question. So for example, if people wanted to only have the title and only have one value, sorry, 1 line, and then you can have a data frame with only title and the 1 line. And then if you plug in, and then you can see the second line disappear.
Yep. So you could, I assume this would also respect maybe HTML like tags and things like that if you wanted to spruce up that text as well.
Yeah, exactly. So if you say B,
yep.
Full tag is the only thing I remember.
Yeah, I'm not an expert at what all the tags are. I just know they're like handy functions, and like the in Shiny itself are like P and H1, H2 and all those. And I do a lot of hiding and showing. I do a lot of that stuff. So
Yep. So now you can have like it's also support HTML tag. So if you insert the picture, if you do like highlighting, change the color, feel free to use that. Feel free to use that in this way, and then that will do the job for you.
Very
Very
nice.
easy to use.
Yep. And
This one is probably also like 2 minutes things.
yeah, I feel like, yeah, you're not really doing anything more complex than the other one. You're just getting a really nice fancy output from it. So
Yep.
very cool.
Yeah.
And yep, so the source code's on GitHub. We'll definitely have a link to that in the episode notes as well. So it sounds like you have been kind of diving into some of these very cool. Oh wow, this is fancy here. So you lumped a
Yes.
whole bunch into this app.
So I built this app in probably 5 minutes. I basically, when I'm learning like when I'm learning Python syntax, like I always forgot some basic syntax, such as like I always confused about like Python syntax versus the base R, although they're very similar. But I wanted to like try to use the flashcard to memorize a lot better, so I can kind of like code this like, okay, so what's the purpose? For example, like show the top n rows, things like that. I can use the dot head, and also like how to select specific column, and then I can use the double bracket like
Mm-hmm.
that. How to rename, things like that. So this is more like self-learning app that I build.
Well, it's a concept almost the standard the test of time, right? Memorization and quizzing yourself, and now we can code up in Shiny. So I feel like I could use this to even if I lead a tutorial in the future and kind of give a little brain exercise first or brain teaser of like, okay, you see these, try to guess before you flip the card what these mean or what kind of code you have to do. So I can see lots of uses for this for both work and probably home projects too. The learning something new.
Yeah, you can also build up some like shuffle function here. So another time if you open this app, it's like a different order.
Oh
So you
yeah.
don't have, so to avoid if people just like remember the order.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta take away that bias that can happen or that cognitive bias of like, oh, I know that was positioned here. I don't even know what it means, but I know it went here.
Yep.
Very nice. So hopefully that's useful for you to learn a little Python along the way too. And so as you've been building, it sounds like you've been trying to experiment or expand your horizons with how you develop these things. Maybe you can tell us a bit about your journey with developing these kind of HTML or JavaScript code bases.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as I mentioned it, I built the HTML, like all this HTML widget from scratch. So this is the CodePen. So CodePen is like a real-time, like online IDE. So you can just put the HTML code here, and then they can have like a nice output like this way. And then, so basically I'm using the code, I'm writing the code here. Now you can see it's like not too long. It's just like probably 20, 30 lines of JavaScript. And then you can have a nice code like that, like nice widget like that.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of like HTML widget building, develop, I think the JSON data structure will be the key for building the HTML widget, because so for example, if I put the HTML code, I put the JavaScript code, CSS, and the HTML code here, and now it's working. You can see that, okay, so we can trust this JavaScript code that's working. We don't have to worry too much about that. But the key part of building HTML widget is to how to make the sense, how to use the JSON to talk from the HTML and the R, because R code, because in R we are using the data frame,
Yep.
data table maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and then how to convert the data frame to this kind of format, this JSON format. That's the key to build a JavaScript widget. It's not like it's not the JavaScript code, it's not the CSS code, it's not the HTML code, because they already built before you build an HTML widget.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so I would like to show, um, one way is to build HTML widget if you have a little bit complex JSON data. For example, if your JSON data will look like this, you have array, and then each array you have the these 3 arrays looks like this. And one of the way to build a JavaScript widget is to use the data tree. And I also built another package called forest tree, which is based on the data tree. We have some kind of like add-on features to reshape the JSON. So now I load the JSON data, and then I convert the JSON data to a tree that's like more visual. Now if I print the tree, I can see, okay, I can see more clearly what's the structure of this JSON.
Oh, nice. It's a nice textual layout, but it respects kind of the nesting structure. That's really cool.
So now we can have like 1, 2, 3, which is like the first array, second array, third array. Each array we will have 1, 2, 3, and then we will have the group A, X is group A, Y is 20, Y0 is 0, things like that. So it's a lot more clear if you just look at comparing, you just look at the JSON by itself.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know that what I've used in the past is the list viewer widget by Kent Russell that wrapped that into R. It was an existing widget, but if you need to show something in console output, that's more of like a click and expanding widget. But if you need to show it to the console, this is a great way to show that. And it reminds me a bit of like printing files in like the FS package of doing like a listing tree structure, but now you're doing it with JSON. It's very cool.
Yep, I love this way to visualize the JSON data, and then this is like helped me a lot to build up the HTML widget, because now I can see the structure. I can kind of like back forth process. It's kind of back forth process. Okay, so now I know the structure of the JSON and what's the format of the data frame I need. So for example, I create a data frame, looks like this. They have all kind of information that JSON need. So we have the cluster, we have 1, 2, 3, and then we have X, we have Y, we have Y0. So this is the structure of the data frame that we need to create the JSON. Okay, so now we have a data frame, and then we use, so in the data tree, we have to, in order to make the data frame looks like a tree, we have to make another column, say, path string, and then we use the path string, and then we convert to a tree. So now this JSON tree is from the data, this data frame. And then if I print it out, I can see this data frame looks exactly like the JSON data tree.
So that other column is just kind of saying what's the hierarchy of these variables and separating almost like a URL of all the slashes. That's very cool.
Yep. So now you know this is the data frame that you need. You can use any kind of like other stuff to convert this data tree to a JSON, and then finally put this JSON to your HTML widget. So that's the key to link the data frame from our community to the JSON from the JavaScript community.
Yeah, and it's another nice way to at least verify that what you're trying to structure in this is correct, and you're able to get very quickly what that looks like from the JSON side as well as from the R side of things. Very cool.
Yeah, so if you look at it, if you're interested about that, this is like nothing fancy. If the Flash dashboard JavaScript widget, like nothing fancy here, they're all from the default scale folder. The only thing that I need is this one, the data equal to data. So this data is linking to a data frame. And now this part is to convert the data to a JSON.
Okay.
And Let me use the FAQ one.
Sure. And you're bringing me flashbacks to when I was at RStudio Conf this year. And I was in Garrett Inamui's JavaScript for Shiny users course. And like you're saying, just that the idea of passing JSON data back and forth from the R process to the HTML or JavaScript side of things, once you master that, kind of all these other things kind of fall into place afterwards, from what I can see.
Yeah, definitely. So for example, if you look at the FAQ page, FAQ.R, and then you can see, okay, so this is the parameter that we pass from the 5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes data frame that we just create. This part is to convert the data frame to a JSON. So now you can see that this is a data frame, and then here I'm using the JSON-let to JSON to pass this data frame to a JSON. And then this JSON is supposed to be exactly matched with your JavaScript JSON.
Right.
Yeah. And then you have some advanced option. I will call it advanced option if you want to allow the users to change the title, change maybe the expand all button or collapse all button text, things like that. You can put extra parameters into this X list. And then they would, so this part is just the scaffolder, like default scaffolder. If you use the Htmlwidget package, this will create it for you. So we don't have to worry too much about that. But this one is the key. Like JSON would be the key to like smooth out the interaction between the JavaScript and R. And then now remember we have like X, we have the data, we have the title and everything. If you look at a little bit more in depth, okay, so this is how I pass the JSON data to, so x.data is a JSON, the correct formatting JSON, and then I passed it to a JSON variable, and then the rest of the code will be just like from how I code it in the code pen.
Very cool. So we're able to leverage kind of that prototyping you do in CodePen and then bring it back into this kind of manifest or this boilerplate, and then be able to kind of expand those, or at least be able to utilize that same code here. Very nice.
Right. And if you want to have like remember we put some more parameter. For example, like we can allow the users to change the button text. So such as expand all button text, and then we can pass it in this way, x.expand all button text, and that would link into this object, things like that.
Cool. Yeah, you're inspiring me that if you can code this up from scratch, there may be hope for an old timer like me to try this out.
This is super easy. Just like don't be frustrated about like, you're thinking it's too hard, but if you do it, you put the first step, like the following stuff is pretty easy, because I just learned the JavaScript this year.
Oh, so impressive.
Yeah, thank you. But I just know some basic stuff. But I think the key will be how to put the JSON in the correct format. That kind of like take some learning curve to figure it out. That's because when you build the HTML widget, sometimes if it's not working, they don't have an error like a very correct error syntax say, okay, so your data is not working, or maybe your parameter is not working, things like that. They don't have very clear syntax to do that. They just show you a blank page, and then you kind of, well, what's going on?
Yeah, and then you have to dive into the developer console and kind of hunt and peck for it. That was one of the things that Garrick talked about in the workshop, was techniques for debugging. And I remember trying to follow along. I admit it kind of went over my head the first time, but if I practice that, I'll probably be able to at least somewhat know what's going on under the hood.
Yeah, and then I figured out is probably most of the case will be the JSON format is not the correct, like you miss some piece in the JSON.
Right.
That's not linking to the JavaScript side. The one way to test that is like you put the data and you run the JSON, and then you copy and paste the JSON to the pure JavaScript environment.
Sure.
See if that would return the right result.
That's a great technique. I've done that with some other complex pipelines that we were passing JSON back and forth and getting JSON out. So I would just try to extract that out and inspect it with different tools and see what we could come up with. Yep.
Yeah. So for example, we have the, let me do a quick demo here. Okay. So now we have to pass the FAQ data frame.
Okay.
Okay. One sec. So now you will have a better idea what's going on in the inside of the box.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Not this one. Okay, so this data frame this is what I'm using for creating the FAQ. And then you just plug this data frame to JavaScript.
Yep.
If I load it.
Yeah, JSON Lite is a very important package for my recent developments. Yep.
Okay, so now you run it. Okay, so that's the JSON format that you need to for the FAQ HTML widget. So that's a lot. So now we can see, okay, so from this data frame, and then if we put this data frame to JSON lead, and then we will spit out like this JSON format, and then now we can use this JSON format, go back to my HTML. So that's referring to this JSON data.
Right. So those from that X object, the data slot had that representation of it. Very cool.
Yeah, so now we can see how we use that. And then in the JSON data, we have like a question and answer. And then because like we have one object question, one object answer, and which is an array. And then you can see, I just write a for loop, say, okay, so in the answer, and then give me a for loop to have the expand and collapse function for each items here.
Nice. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna. I think this repo is great because it'll give me a good practice to try these concepts out with something that is not trying to be too complex. Sometimes these widgets are doing so many fancy things that you get kind of lost in their code base of like, okay, what's the impact of changing this variable here or this constant here? This one's gonna be a lot more straightforward for me to follow through at first. So very cool.
Yeah, I also get a lot of help from my teammate here, so it's worth to mention.
Very cool. Always a team effort in a lot of these things, so I'm glad they were able to contribute as well.
Yeah. Also, if the data tree that I mentioned is like not shaped to the specific JSON format that you need, I have another package called forest tree. So this forest tree is building. So for example, if you wanted to just create some node, you can just do create node like this way. And they also have some other features that can have, let me see, for example, here, that you can summarize the exercise time for each level.
Oh,
so
cool.
For example, like every January, and then January to December, they can have like a Q sum, which is like end of the year cumulative add-on value. And then they can also do this value, apply this value to this level. So January, like each month is like the level 3. And on the top of level 3, we have level 2, which is quarterly data. So we can apply this one. Like,
Oh, that's really nice. So on multiple levels, you can do the sum differently. Oh,
yep.
cool.
So it's kind of something that like a little bit creative.
Yeah. Yeah. I've not seen that before like that. It's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So this one, I also get some help from my teammate here.
Okay. Well, kudos to, looks like Michael in that case for giving
So,
you some additional help there.
yep.
Very nice. So I'm excited to share with our audience all these different great utilities you've made. We'll have it all in the show notes. And one thing I like to leave with as we conclude is now that you've had a lot, a good amount of experience with Shiny, and now in this world of HTML widgets, maybe you could share with us your perspective for those in our audience that kind of want to take their Shiny skills to the next level. As you've been learning Shiny, what are some of the techniques or things that have helped you in that process?
I think shining, like if you are the beginner, and then maybe use some explore some HTML widget that as much as possible. And then when you use some kind of like easy use like fancy HTML widget, you will automatically have the motivation to dig through more, and then finally you will create your own package by yourself. And I would say like start from easy, just like use the easy tool, use the tool that you like first, and then just do every single twist that as you can, and then you will get more familiar about this package. Now you will go back to the raw code from this, like the source code from this package. You will learn more about the structure, scaffolder of how we create the package. And then you will know how to create a package, and then you'll probably gonna to create a package by yourself. And then the next step will be, okay, so how do we create the HTML widget that is like super useful, and then for the R community, because the Shiny is highly, the HTML widget make the Shiny more interactive. So I would say like go ahead and then learn more about like the JavaScript and CSS and HTML, and finally you would use the JSON to combine this all piece together, and then you will have like your own HTML widget.
Oh, that's excellent advice. And like I said, I'm inspired to try that next phase of my Shiny development journey. Absolutely. Very cool.
Thank
So
you.
for our listener or our viewers that want to kind of see what you're up to and maybe get in contact with you, what are the best ways they can reach you?
I have like a personal website, just my
Sure.
name, Jiena McLellan, no space.
Cool.
So this is like a little bit slow, but it's okay.
You do
So
some fancy stuff on that. I'm impressed.
this is using the block down that Yihui create.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I have my GitHub and Twitter and LinkedIn, email, things like that. So feel free to say hi, or maybe if you have a PR or maybe you have the issue, just go to the GitHub and then maybe say hi in Twitter, maybe send me a invite in the LinkedIn, something like that. So
Sounds great. Yep, we'll have links to all those in the show notes as well. But certainly, Jiena, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your great work for the community. And like I said, you've already, at least for one of my colleagues, helped them save a boatload of money on one project. So I'm sure there are many other benefits that our viewers are going to see from all this work. So very cool. And you're welcome back on the Dev Series anytime in the future if you want to show more of your new work down the road.
thank you.
All right. Well, we will be back right after this, everybody. All right. My thanks to Jiena for joining us for episode 16. And boy, did I have a lot of fun seeing the cool things that she's been able to do. And even that flashcard widget, I could use that to learn some new skills that would have used the traditional paper or paper cutted version of that. So we'll have links to all the great demonstrations and packages that she shared in the episode show notes. Until then, if you want to get a hold of us and you'd like to see past recordings, the best place to go is to head to shinydevseries.com There you'll see links to all the previous episodes, along with a link to fill out a contact form if you'd like to send your feedback that way. We have lots more exciting content in store for you, and certainly getting ready to do some development work on my end to have a little fun building things together with all of you. So until then, let's close up shop for episode 16. And again, thank you so much for tuning in. And hopefully you learned something really useful today, like I did, as always, with my great guests on this very series. So we'll see you next time. Until then, end of line.